Hello, my dear students. Welcome you all on the platform of Shri Jayendra Rank Zone classes. I am your mentor and your friend for the subject biology. My dear students, this is the second lecture for male reproductive system, which is a part of human reproduction. In the previous lecture, I have just given the introduction regarding the male reproductive system, the primary sex organs and the secondary sex or accessory sex organs. Now we are going to start with the anatomical features of male reproductive system, which are very essential. Okay, so starting with the very first point is that in male reproductive system, the testes develop from mesoderm during intrauterine life. Intrauterine life, you know, the gestational period, the time of pregnancy during which a fetus, a embryo, a newborn baby develops. During this period, we are having the outer layer, which is known as what? Ectoderm. The inner layer, which is known as what? Endoderm. And the cells of endoderm or ectoderm, they basically segregate to form a middle layer, that is mesoderm. So mesoderm is the point of origin of connective tissues. Ectoderm is the point of origin of skin, brain, spinal cord. Endoderm is the point of origin for all the organs and the linings of the organs, right? So the first point is the testis develop from mesoderm, right? Because it is a gland. So almost all the endocrine glands which are having associated with the function of secreting hormones, they are basically derived from mesoderm. Then the second point is a human male is having a pair of testes which is around 4 to 2.5 centimeter in dimensions, right? Both testes, they are located outside the abdomen. That part is known as what? Extra abdominal cavity. This extra abdominal cavity or the pouch or the bag-like structure in which testes are basically present, that is known as what? Scrotum or scrotal sac. Why it is so? Because the human body temperature, as I have explained in the previous lecture, is around 37.4 degrees Celsius, but the formation of sperm needs the temperature which is lower by 2 to 2.5 degree Celsius. So the process of spermatogenesis is very influenced by the temperature of environment or temperature of the system. That is why it is needed to have low temperature so that the facilitation of sperms can take place. The third point is that intra-abdominal testis, it is an exception. Please note it down, it is an exception. Human males or mammals, they have, almost all the mammals, they have extra-abdominal testis. But whales, egg-laying mammals, elephants, they all have intra-abdominal testis, means inside abdomen. Intra-abdominal testis. I hope you are getting me. Intra-abdominal testis means inside abdominal cavity. Extra-abdominal testis means outside abdominal cavity. Then we come to the fourth point. There are some fibers which actually attaches the testis to the scrotum, because the scrotal sac is like this and the testis is like this. Okay, so actually there should be some fibers now which should attach the testis to the scrotum wall, right? So these fibers, they are known as what? Gubernaculum or mesorchium. So mesorchium or gubernaculum, they are the group of fibers which actually attaches. They are supportive in function. Supportive in function, right? This is understood. Group of fibers which actually attaches the testis to the wall of the scrotum is gubernaculum or mesorchium. The next, testis is attached to the dorsal body wall. Dorsal body wall means at the back of the abdominal cavity. Okay, so you can feel it, your abdomen, the back side where you are having a spinal cord. So testis is basically attached to that wall which is having the spinal cord, right? So at the abdominal cavity, the dorsal wall of the abdominal cavity is basically having the testis attached with it by the help of very important spermatic cord. Spermatic cord, it is a process which helps to attach testis to the wall of abdominal cavity. And which wall? Dorsal wall. Okay. Spermatic cord is basically a composition of elastic fibers and spermatic fascia. Whenever this term encounters your brain, whenever fascia, it's basically known as fascia. So fascia, whether it belongs to anywhere, it basically relates to the the alveolar tissues. Okay, the tissues which actually helps to fill up the gap in between the organs. So spermatic fascia and elastic fibers, they are the main components of spermatic cord. Spermatic cord, basically it also contains the gonadal veins which are going to supply the gonads, means the testis, means arteries and veins. Along with it, it also have nerves, okay, which actually help to provide sensation, to set up the sense of consciousness, right? And we have lymphatic system as well, as because the lymph nodes here only we are having the inguinal lymph nodes which actually passes through the inguinal canal. So right, all these structures, whether they are gonadal veins, gonadal arteries, nerves, lymphatics, they all are basically a part of spermatic cord. And spermatic cord is what? It is made up of fibers and spermatic fascia. Then the next is scrotum. Scrotum is basically lined by a two group of muscles, dartos muscle and the cremaster muscle. Cremaster muscle we will conclude later. So scrotum is lined by dartos muscle and spermatic fascia internally. Means the internal lining of scrotum, is basically this lining which I am just going to draw. This lining, the internal lining, is basically having dartos muscle and spermatic fascia. The dartos muscle, basically it helps in contraction, okay, and relaxation, which actually helps during temperature variation. So dartos muscle basically provides a property of thermoregulation as it contracts during cold and relaxes during warm, okay, so that the testis, they can maintain the temperature requirement for sperm formation. Okay, so all these points are clear. Now we are coming to the next slide. Yeah, this is the continuation of the previous one. The cremaster muscles, they lies inside the wall of scrotum. Means we are having two muscles, dartos muscles and the cremaster muscles. So cremaster muscles and dartos muscles, they basically lies inside the wall of the scrotum and the inguinal canal. What is inguinal canal? Inguinal canal is basically, it is a structure like the apex of the triangle through which the structures passes. The structures passes. What are these structures? In the 7th month of gestational period, the gonads, means the testes, they have to descend down in the extra abdominal pouch, because for the formation of sperm, the temperature should be low than the normal body temperature. So at the time of 7th month of gestational period, with the help of testosterone hormone, the testes, they come down. Okay, in a developing baby, they were previously inside the abdomen, lower abdomen, but when they come at a stage of 7 month of gestational period, they comes down into they slip down through the inguinal canal, yahan se, through the inguinal canal downwards to scrotal pouch, right? If it doesn't happens, then what will happen? The person becomes impotent, because there will be no functional testes present. So failure of descent of testes will lead to cryptorchidism or undescended testes. Okay, it can lead to further, in a form of complication, testicular cancer or a malignancy, right? So I'll repeat myself again. Cremaster muscles and dartos muscles, they are the pair of muscles which basically line the wall of scrotum. And inguinal canal. Inguinal canal is basically a trigonal shaped structure which helps to basically pass the testis through it at the time of 7 month of gestation. 7 month of gestation. If in case it doesn't happens, what will happen? A condition which is known as what? Cryptorchidism or undescended testes will be there. And it may lead to malignancy, because the testes inside the abdomen, they will actually occupy the space, and they have a pattern in which cells are quickly dividing. So they can lead to unproliferated division anyhow, okay? Because the hormonal secretion will be very much reduced, especially testosterone, right? And testosterone, my dear friends, it is having some factors which actually prevent us body from excessive hyperoxidation. Excessive hyperoxidation means cells, they do not undergo the process of necrosis, means cells, they do not degrade, they do not destroy, or they do not divide unregularly, okay, or uncontrolled, right? So it can lead to testicular cancer. Now, the inguinal canal is a narrow duct which joins scrotum to abdominal cavity. So these 2 points just you have to remember for inguinal canal, that inguinal canal is a narrow duct which joins scrotum to the abdominal cavity. Like for example, I'll draw here, this is the lower abdominal part, right? This is the lower abdominal part, and these are the scrotum. So inguinal canal basically joins the scrotal wall to the abdominal cavity, okay? It is a connecting link. It is a point of joining which helps to join scrotum and abdominal cavity, right? Now, the cremaster muscles, they are very important, because cremaster muscles, they lie inside the wall of scrotum, and they are responsible for elevation of testis. They are responsible for elevation of testis, okay? So, what are the functions of dartos muscle and cremaster muscle? Can anyone tell me? Yeah, cremaster muscles helps in the elevation of testes, and dartos muscles helps in the thermoregulation. Okay, they basically contract during cold and relaxes during warm. Okay, now what is the function of inguinal canal? Inguinal canal helps to join scrotum and abdominal cavity. Inguinal canal helps to bypass what? The developing testes at the 7th month of gestation with the help of testosterone hormone, and if it doesn't happen, the condition is cryptorchidism or undescended testes, right? Now, there is an important condition which is known as what? Monochordism. This monochordism is presence of single testis. Mono means single, and chordism basically related to testis, right? So monochordism or monorchidism is a presence of single testis, okay? Only one testis. Example, Ascaris. Okay, Ascaris, you know, it is a roundworm. Okay, it belongs to the phylum Nematihelminthes or Scahelminthes. So these were the functions of cremaster muscle, dartos muscle, inguinal canal, cryptorchidism or undescended testis or monochordism. Okay, example of monochordism is Ascaris. Okay, understood? Shall we move further? Okay. Yeah. Now this is a longitudinal section of testis which is given, and what you actually have to remember, most importantly for your coming competitive exams. First, the different coats or layers you can see around testis. You can see we are having 3 layers which are, or 3 coats which are around the testis. These 3 coats are tunica albuginea, tunica vaginalis and tunica corposa. Okay, I think tunica corposa is not mentioned here. Okay, no issues, no issues. So I'll do one thing. First I will give you a complete picture in your brain that what are these 3 different layers, and then we come to the diagram and I'll explain to it. Okay, is it okay? Okay, thank you. Yeah, these are 3 different layers or coats. I have written it for you so that you can just chalk it down, just note it down. So first is tunica vaginalis, which is the outermost layer, then tunica albuginea, which is the middle coat, and tunica vasculosa, which is the innermost layer. Okay, tunica vaginalis, which is the outermost layer, it is having 2 layers, the parietal layer and the visceral layer, both of which covers the whole testis except the posterior border. Except the posterior border, they cover the whole testis. Okay, am I made myself very clear? Tunica vaginalis is the outermost, tunica albuginea is the middle coat, and tunica vasculosa is the innermost, right? So tunica vaginalis, it is having 2 layers, the parietal layer and the visceral layer, which basically covers the whole of the testis except the posterior border. Except the posterior border. Just mark it. Except the posterior border, right? Posterior border of the testis is the site of entry, because the posterior border, it should remain open because it is a site of entry for testicular vessels and nerves. It is a site of entry of testicular vessels and nerves. So my dear students, what are the 3 layers? On the count of 3, the third one is tunica vasculosa, from inner to outside, tunica vasculosa innermost, tunica albuginea middle coat, tunica vaginalis outermost, right? So tunica vaginalis, which is the outermost layer, it is having 2 layers. The outer one is parietal and the inner one is visceral. Okay, right? It is not covering the portion of posterior side at the back of the testis. Okay, because the posterior side is basically meant for the entry of testicular vessels and nerves. Then comes to the second coat, which is tunica albuginea. Tunica albuginea is the middle coat, my dear students. This coat is basically made up of white fibrous, okay, or white fibers. Okay, these dense white fibers they cover the testis all around. They cover the testis all around. It is thickened at the posterior border. It is thickened at the posterior border. So you can see the contradictory statement here. It is not present at the posterior border, which tunica albuginea. TA is not present. Tunica vaginalis, sorry. I'm so sorry. Tunica vaginalis is not present. And tunica albuginea is present, and it is thickened at the posterior borders to form mediastinum testis, right? Now, what I am telling you, please note it down. This posterior border is basically the posterior border of tunica albuginea, right? It is not the posterior border of testis. Okay? So tunica albuginea at its posterior side, okay, mean at the side of its back, okay, everything is having front side and back side. Mera bhi hai, I mean it's mine also, it's your also. So that posterior border, mean the tunica albuginea, it gets thickened, it gets coiled up, okay, it gets thickened, increases its size, diameter at the posterior border and forms mediastinum testis, okay, it forms mediastinum testis, okay. Now comes tunica vasculosa, which is the innermost layer. It forms the lining of testicular lobules. It is present as the lining of testicular lobules. The testicular lobules, they have seminiferous tubules, okay, they have seminiferous tubules. Now I'll show you the previous diagram like this. So this is tunica albuginea, this is tunica vaginalis. Ab tunica vaginalis, the parietal layer, the visceral layer, and this is the cavity. This is the cavity, right? This is tunica albuginea. Tunica albuginea is the middle coat. Tunica vaginalis is the outermost coat. Now please remember, the outermost coat, tunica vaginalis, it is not present at the back side. This part, the view which we are seeing right now, this is the frontal view, right, or the ventral view of the testis, okay. We have just longitudinally cut testis, okay. For example, we are having, this is the scrotal pouch and these are the testis. So I have just cut it down through the face. So when I will cut it down through the face longitudinally, I have divided like this. So it will open like this. Okay? And it will show the testicular lobules here like this, as seen in the diagram. Okay? So what I have done, I have just cut it down, right? I'll rub it. Now see, so the tunica vaginalis, which is the outermost layer, is divided into parietal layer and the visceral layer, and tunica albuginea is the middle coat. The innermost layer is tunica vasculosa, okay, it is tunica vasculosa. Now please remember, the tunica vaginalis is basically covering the front side, all the side except the posterior border, because it is the entry of the vessels, okay, the testicular vessels, okay. Now the tunica albuginea, which is the middle coat, it basically merges at the posterior side. This is the posterior side, this is the frontal or ventral side of the tunica albuginea, this is the posterior side, okay. So this posterior side, I'll write P over it. This is the posterior side, okay. So what will happen, the tunica albuginea, it merges, all the tunica albuginea merges to form, everything is converging, okay, meeting at a particular point, right? They all meet at a particular point and they form mediastinum testis, okay. This wall is known as what? Mediastinum testis, okay. You have to remember, or you have to just note one thing which is very important. The seminiferous tubules, they are highly convoluted, zigzag, 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 and suddenly they become straight. Reason being, if you are having a pipe like this, it is general physics, right? Now this pipe is highly convoluted at this side, right? Convergence means it is up and down, and suddenly it becomes straight. Why? To actually apply a right pressure, to actually apply a exact pressure during ejaculation. During ejaculation, the movement sperms which are produced in these seminiferous tubules, they are actually poured into mediastinum with the help of these straight seminiferous tubules. These straight seminiferous tubules, they are known as what? Ductuli recti. I'll tell you out afterwards. So basically, if they are having straight, to all these conversions, they will push it outside. Okay, they will push it outside, and the required amount of sperm will be ejected out. Okay, so these are the layers: tunica vaginalis outermost, tunica albuginea middle coat, and tunica vasculosa. Right. The other features, like I have told you, this ductuli recti. Okay, this is the vas deferens. All the sperms goes from seminiferous tubules to mediastinum testis, from mediastinum testis to rete testis. This is known as what? Rete testis. Okay, rete testis. Okay, rete testis. Now from rete testis they moves to epididyme, efferent ductules or vasa efferens. Okay, vas efferens or efferent ductules. Now they move like this. Again conversion to actually make a right pressure, and they actually move through the vas deferens. Okay, they move through this, and from vas deferens they become the part of, okay, they will receive the secretions of all the accessory glands. Okay, and they become the part of the ejaculatory tract. Okay, so I hope I made myself very clear. Okay, I'll tell you the pathway of the sperm ejaculation or the movement. Okay, I'll write it down here, just give me a minute. Yeah, so first, all the layers are clear. Now each lobule is the part which is having 1, 2, 3 seminiferous tubules. Each lobule is having 1, 2, 3 seminiferous tubules. All these lobules merge at the apex of lobules. They merge at the apex of the lobules and form a straight tubule, or tubuli recti, which I just told you. Tubuli recti. Okay, tubuli recti enters through mediastinum. It enters through mediastinum and forms rete testis. That also I told you. Okay, rete testis fuses to form efferent ductule, vasa efferentia. Okay, 10 to 20 efferent ductules, vasa efferentia. Right. Vasa efferentia comes out through the posterior or the upper dorsal surface of testis. This is very important. Posterior or upper dorsal surface of testis, and form head of epididymis. That is caput epididymis. Caput epididymis. Okay. Vasa efferentia comes out through the posterior upper dorsal surface of the testis and forms head of testis, caput epididymis. Epididymis is the place where sperms can store for around 1 month, and the maturation of sperm takes place here, right, children's? Maturation of sperm takes place at the point or at the site of epididymis. Epididymis is a place where the sperms can be stored temporarily for 1 month. Okay, they can be stored for 1 month. Total number of seminiferous tubules in one testis is around 750 to 1000. Mean total seminiferous tubules in one testis. Okay, so around, for both we are having 1500 to 2000. Okay, now coming back to the diagram, now I will write the pathway or the passage of the sperm. I am rubbing all these. Okay, now see, the journey starts from seminiferous tubules. Now see, childrens, this is one lobule. This is lobule, which I am making in dark. Right, this is lobule. right? And the convoluted part, they are seminiferous tubules. So each lobule is having 1 to 3 seminiferous tubules. Okay, I told you. Okay. So from seminiferous tubules, they are inside lobules. Okay. From seminiferous tubules, they basically comes to straight ductules known as tubuli recti. Very good. From tubuli recti, they enters mediastinum. Okay, this is the mediastinum. Okay. From seminiferous tubules to tubuli recti, this is tubuli recti, this is straight part. Okay, and this is mediastinum, and this all is mediastinum, right? Mediastinum. From mediastinum to rete testis. From rete testis to efferent ductule or vasa efferentia or vas efferentia. Okay. Now coming to next, they further pass to epididymis, the head of epididymis, right? Or the caput epididymis. Okay, and from here they move to vas deferens. Okay, so this is the passage of sperm from seminiferous tubules. They move to straight ductules or tubuli recti, then they move to mediastinum, then they move to rete testis, then they move to efferent ductules or vasa efferentia, then they move to head of epididymis or caput epididymis, and then vas deferens. Okay, now we will move further. So this slide is over. Everything is clear, I hope so. Thank you. Now coming to next, epididymis, it is having 3 parts. There are 3 parts which are present in epididymis, right? This diagram I just have posted to explain that how the sperm, how the testis, the penis, which is the external genitalia, the glands, the urinary bladder, everything is related to. Okay, epididymis, it is having 3 parts. The caput, which is the head, which is uppermost part and highly coiled. Okay, then we have corpus epididymis, then we have cauda epididymis. So these 3 parts you have to remember: caput, corpus, cauda. Caput, corpus, cauda. Caput, corpus, cauda. Cauda. Okay, so caput epididymis, upper and highly coiled; corpus epididymis and cauda epididymis. Cauda means basal or least coiled. Okay, so caput, you remember cap is worn at top, head, so cap. Okay, cauda means tail is at back or the lower portion, and corpus is at the middle. So caput means cap, top; corpus, middle; and cauda means tail or back, which is at the lowermost portion. Okay, so caput epididymis, upper and highly coiled; corpus epididymis and cauda epididymis. Cauda epididymis is basal and least coiled, right? Then we have the cauda epididymis. It forms vas deferens and enters abdominal cavity. Very important. Which part of epididymis basically merge into vas deferens? Cauda epididymis. Which part of the epididymis is highly coiled? Caput. Which part of the epididymis is basal or at the lowermost portion? Cauda. So these are the important questions, right? So cauda epididymis, it forms vas deferens, it enters the abdominal cavity, right? Its terminal dilated part, the vas deferens, The terminal dilated part of vas deferens is known as what? Ampulla. Ampulla means, suppose this is vas deferens. The terminal part is like this. It is dilated, and this is known as what? Ampulla. This ampulla further continues in the form of ejaculatory duct, right? So its terminal dilated part is called ampulla. Wolffian duct of mesonephros. Meso means middle, little, moderate, and nephros basically comes from the nephrons, kidney, right? So mesonephros is the type of nephron which is present. So Wolffian duct during the embryological development, Wolffian duct of mesonephros forms vas deferens and epididymis. Okay. So just you have to remember, epididymis and vas deferens, they emerges from Wolffian duct. Wolffian duct, it forms what? Vas deferens and epididymis. Okay. Both vas deferens and epididymis is made of outer circular layer and inner epithelium. Inner is epithelium and outer layer is circular. It is circular. Okay. Like this. Outer circular layer and inner layer is epithelium. Understood? Okay. So both vas deferens and epididymis, it is having two layers. One is the outer circular layer and the inner is epithelium. Now epididymis, it can store sperms temporarily for around 1 month. I already explained. Okay. The vas deferens, it pulsate, means the movement, the vas deferens, it continues to form a dilated portion, ampulla. It pulsates, means it put pressure from the back so that sperms can move. Right? So vas deferens, it basically provides a pulsation force so that sperms can move. Right? Sperms can move further. Okay. So pulsation of vas deferens, it basically passes the sperm into the abdominal cavity. Okay. Now, sir, why you are telling that sperm they need to pass through abdominal cavity? See, they actually don't have to go through abdominal cavity. They actually have to meet a duct, which is a common passage for both urine and ejaculation of sperm. For that, they have to turn into abdominal cavity and they have to come back to the ejaculatory duct. Now, this is actually the portion. These convoluted tubules, they basically merges the sperm. This is vas deferens. Now, the movement of sperm like this. And why the tail of sperm is always shown like this? What is the reason? Sir, the reason is, this is the cap, okay. The reason is because the sperm, it needs motility and it basically is passing through highly convoluted, tracks like seminiferous tubules like this. So the tail actually acquires the shape of the movement which it traveled for so long. So that is why the sperm is having the tail like this, and the sperm moves, it moves. Before the terminal portion of the vas deferens, means the ampulla, the accessory glands, they merge their secretions. Okay. So all the secretions mean we are having the glands, prostate gland. It is single. Single means not that single. Single means what? One. It is not paired. Okay. Bulbourethral gland, it is Cowper's gland. It is known as what? Cowper's gland. Okay. So prostate gland, bulbourethral gland or Cowper's gland. Then we have seminal vesicles as well. Seminal vesicles. So this is seminal vesicles. Right? Okay. Seminal vesicle, I'll tell you the all types of glands. Okay. Further in this video. Seminal vesicle, we have pair of seminal vesicles. Okay. Okay. We have a single prostate gland and we have bulbourethral gland. We have bulbourethral gland. This is bulbourethral gland. Understood? I'm just demarcating it. Okay. Then the urethra is also divided in two parts. Although it is not important for this, prostatic urethra and membranous urethra. It will come further. Okay. This is the dilated portion. Dilated portion. Ampulla. This is the dilated portion which is known as what? Ampulla. So the moment ampulla merges with the ejaculatory duct, mean the terminalization of ampulla, further it meets with all the glands to put their secretions in it. Okay. So I made myself very clear. Epididymis, three parts: caput epididymis, corpus epididymis, cauda epididymis. Caput means cap, okay. Cauda means tail. Then the terminal part is dilated, which is known as what? Ampulla. Wolffian duct gives vas deferens epididymis. Vas deferens epididymis. Wolffian duct. Wolffian duct gives vas deferens epididymis. Then both vas deferens and epididymis, it is made up of two layers: circular layer outer and the inner epithelium. Then epididymis, it can store sperms. It can store sperms temporarily for 1 month, and it is very important for the maturation of sperm. Then pulsation of vas deferens leads to the passage of sperm into abdominal cavity. Okay, it basically leads to the passage of sperm into abdominal cavity. Okay, then moving next, I'll take so sorry for your time consumption. I was just looking. Yeah. Okay. Now we are having accessory reproductive glands, right? So accessory reproductive glands, we have seminal vesicles, we have prostate gland, and we have bulbourethral gland, which is covered on the next page, right? This is bulbourethral or Cowper's gland. Now, seminal vesicles. Seminal vesicles, it is derived from Wolffian duct. Wolffian duct also give rise to vas deferens and epididymis. Seminal vesicles, it gives rise to Wolffian duct, it gives rise to vas deferens, epididymis, and seminal vesicles. It is lined internally by glandular epithelium, because it is a gland. That's why it should be lined by glandular epithelium, right? Which secretes seminal fluid. It secretes seminal fluid. Seminal fluid, it provides lubrication so that the movement of the sperm can facilitate. It becomes easy for the sperms to move. Okay. Now, it is transparent and it is a jelly-like substance which makes around 60 to 70% part of sperm. It forms 60 to 70% part of sperm. So, what catch you have to remember regarding seminal vesicles? It is a gland. It developed from Wolffian duct. Okay. Another in the brain. Sir, Wolffian duct give rise to vas deferens, epididymis. Okay, understood. Now, seminal vesicles, it is made up of glandular epithelium. It is having glands. Okay. Seminal fluid which is secreted by seminal vesicle, it makes around 60 to 70% part of semen. Okay, it is a transparent jelly-like structure which actually provides lubrication. It actually provides lubrication. Now, coming next, it is slightly alkaline. It is slightly alkaline, having a pH of 7.3. Okay, alkaline means it should have bicarbonate ions. It should have some basic ions. Okay. Fructose is found in seminal fluid. It acts as a fuel to sperm. The seminal fluid, it basically giving sperm its food, fructose. Okay. And that is why the person suffering from azoospermia or asthenospermia, they are recommended to have a high fructose diet, because their sperms, they are lacking motility or they are lacking maturation. So basically, to give
fuel to sperm so that they can move further, they should be feeded with fructose, high carbohydrate diet. It is slightly alkaline, means pH 7.3. It also contains fibrinogen, okay, for making clots. Fibrinogen, you know, it is a important factor of clotting cascade or clotting mechanism, right? Then prostaglandins. Prostaglandins are local hormones. They are basically responsible for lipid metabolism. Okay, a kind of pheromones, not exactly, but we can call it. It also contains citrate. Okay, citrate is a salt of citric acid. So all these salts, they are basically giving a alkaline pH. Bicarbonate, citrate. Okay, inositol, it's a very important term. Inositol and several proteins, they are present in semen. Okay, so fibrinogen, prostaglandins, citrate, inositol and several proteins, they are present in semen. Okay, semen is basically formed by seminal vesicles. Now coming to prostate gland. Prostate gland is located below the urinary bladder. I have just explained you the position of prostate gland, just below the urinary bladder. It is unpaired and consists of 5 lobes in men. It consists of 5 lobes in man, right? It is unpaired and it consists of 5 lobes in man. Each lobe opens into prostatic urethra. Each lobe opens into prostatic urethra through many fine apertures. Each lobe actually opens into prostatic urethra through many fine apertures. Okay, it secretes highly alkaline, slightly alkaline, sorry, prostatic fluid. It secretes slightly alkaline prostatic fluid, means its secretion also is basic in nature. It's alkaline in nature. Okay, which is milky, thick, sticky or jelly-like. It is milky, thick, sticky or jelly-like. It makes about 30% of semen and helps in sperm activation. So which secretion of accessory glands helps to activate sperm? Prostate gland. Which secretion of accessory glands helps to feed sperm with the formation of fuel? Fructose, means seminal vesicles. Okay, so these are the important points. Now the secretion of prostate gland has citric acid. Citric acid was also present in seminal vesicle in the form of citrate, citric acid, calcium and phosphate, clotting enzymes. Okay, clotting enzymes are also present. Here we are also having fibrinogen. Okay, the secretion of prostate gland combines with secretion of seminal vesicle. Now both the secretions, they merge. Now what will happen? Just look. The secretion of prostate gland combines with the secretion of seminal vesicle and the semen gets coagulated. Why the coagulation is happening? Because the clotting enzyme which are present in the two of the fluids, they actually helps to clot the proteins. They helps to coagulate the proteins. Okay, they partially coagulate the proteins of each other. Okay, and the coagulated sperm further, it becomes highly dense, in which the sperms, they feel or they face, difficulty to move. Okay, so most of the fructose or their energy is conserved in this phenomenon. During this phenomenon, most of the energy is conserved, right? So actually ejaculation is not done. Before that only the energy of the sperms are consumed by the coagulation. The coagulation is basically happening when the seminal vesicle and the seminal fluid and the prostatic fluid, they merges with each other. Now fibrinolizins, they are anticoagulating enzymes. Anticoagulating enzymes. Somebody can ask, sir, coagulation is related to blood? No, coagulation is related to anything. It can related to anything. Okay, coagulation means precipitation. Okay, so fibrinolizins, they actually break the fibrinogen, they break the fibrin fibers, and they will help the sperm to move again, right? So fibrinolizin, they help to move the sperm again. So I made myself very clear, I think. Students, any problem? You can just ask. Okay. Everything is clear? Thank you. Thank you very much. So we have covered seminal vesicles, we have covered prostate gland. Everything is told to you. Just remember. I'll come to the picture once again. This is the prostate gland just below the urinary bladder. These are the seminal vesicles. Okay, you just have to remember. And this is the ampulla, the dilated part. This is the ampulla, the dilated part. Okay? Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, we are having Cowper's gland or bulbourethral gland. Bulbourethral gland. Cowper's gland or bulbourethral gland, it is a pair of glands, again pair. The prostate is like unmarried, and Cowper's and seminal vesicle, they are married like a good couples. The Cowper's gland, it is a pair of glands found on the lateral side of urethra. It is basically present on the lateral side of urethra. It is also called bulbourethral gland, and it is situated in the membranous part of urethra. Very important. It is situated in the membranous part of urethra. The other name of Cowper's gland, bulbourethral gland. It is found on the lateral side of the urethra, at the lateral sides. Okay, and it is also called bulbourethral gland. It basically is situated in the membranous part of the urethra. That time I told you the prostatic urethra and the membranous urethra. There is the function. Okay, so membranous urethra basically is having the Cowper's gland, and it opens into penile urethra, means the external genitalia. The external genitalia. Right? It secretes transparent, slimy, jelly-like fluid. It secretes transparent, slimy, jelly-like fluid, and it is slightly alkaline. pH is 7.2. So, seminal vesicle secretes seminal fluid, pH 7.3. Okay. Prostatic secretion also pH greater than 7. Then Cowper's gland also pH greater than 7. So basically, why they are secreting a fluid which is alkaline in nature? The reason is because they have to meet the acidic environment the moment sperm enters the external genitalia of a female. That is because of some specific species of vaginalis bacteria, the environment becomes acidic because of the secretion of some organic acids like lactic acid. So these acidic environment can basically hampers or they can interfere with the motility of sperm. That is why, to neutralize the pH and to facilitate the free movement of sperm, it is very much needed to actually be on the right pH, because if the pH get disturbed, the enzymes will not work. As you know, the kinetics of enzyme, the rate of enzyme is dependent upon the pH and temperature, right? So this is about Cowper's gland. The secretion of Cowper's gland is transparent, slimy, jelly-like fluid. So almost all the secretions were transparent, jelly-like. The prostatic secretion was milky. Okay, the Cowper's gland secretion was slimy. Okay, I take to the first slide. And the seminal vesicles, the fluid was, it is lubricating. So there are some important catch, you can just hold it. Okay. Now, it destroys the acidity of urethra and cleans it for the movement of sperms. Okay. Cowper's gland, it performs one more function. It is secreting a alkaline fluid which destroys the acidity of urethra. It destroys the acidity of urethra and it cleans it for the movement of sperm, so that sperm can freely move. So urethra, it becomes, it becomes acidic because it is a common passage for taking urine as well. Okay. So because of the acidic nature of urine, which is 6.8, to basically destroy the microbes or prevent the antimicrobial, they act as antimicrobial factors in urine. So that is why it is very much needed to neutralize it. Okay. It also helps in the lubrication of penis. The Cowper's gland, it also helps in the lubrication of penis. It helps to destroy the acidity of urethra and cleans the environment for the better passage of sperms. Now, what is semen? Semen is sperm plus the fluid put in by accessory glands, right? The volume of semen secreted is around 3 to 4 ml and the pH is 7.3. It is around pH 7.3. The normal sperm count is around 20 to 120 millions per ml. 120 to 120 millions per ml. What is oligospermia? If the amount of sperm count is less than 20 ml, then it is oligo. Oligo means less, small. What is azoospermia? Azo. Zoo means basically, azo means absence or not present. Okay. So azoospermia is basically signaling or trying to tell that there is near to absence of sperms, meaning either sperms are not forming or they are around absent. Okay. Now, asthenospermia. Asthenospermia means reduced motility of sperms. The motility of sperms decreases down because of many of the reasons I told you. Okay. Teratospermia. Teratogen means something which is abnormal in respect to its structure. Okay. So teratospermia means abnormal morphology of sperm. Okay. Oligospermia means, oligos means small, less, low amount of sperm, less than 20 ml. Azoospermia means there are no flagellated cells. Flagellated cells means sperm. Azo means flagellated cells. Okay. So azo means no flagellated cells, means no sperms. Asthenospermia, reduced motility of sperms because of any reasons. It can be because of reduced secretion of testosterone. It can be because of any dysfunction of the testis, maybe of any reasons. Okay, it can be any causes for that. Teratospermia, abnormal morphology of sperm. The sperm morphology becomes different. It becomes something unusual, right? A human male almost ejaculates 200 to 300 million of sperm in a single coitus, in a single intercourse. It produces around 200 to 300 million of sperms in a single intercourse, around which 60% of sperms have normal shape and normal function. Okay, 60% of sperms, they have normal shape and normal motility required. Normal means required for fertility. Okay, for the conceivement of a female, so that she can becomes pregnant. Okay, so a human male ejaculates 200 to 300 million of sperm in a single coitus, in which 60% of sperms have normal shape for fertility. Okay, and they are having normal motility. Around 40% of sperms, they have vigorous motility. They have vigorous motility. Understood? So, the Cowper's gland or the bulbourethral gland, it is basically a pair of gland which is present on the lateral side of the urethra. Okay, it is also called bulbourethral gland. It secretes a secretion when its secretion is somewhat alkaline, which actually neutralizes the acidic behavior of urethra and it cleans the movement of sperms. Okay, the membranous part of urethra, it basically receives Cowper's gland. Meaning the Cowper's gland is actually situated in the membranous region of urethra. Urethra, which part of urethra? Membranous, and opens into penile urethra. Okay. What is semen? Semen is sperm plus accessory glands. The volume of semen is 3 to 4 ml and the pH is 7.3. The normal sperm count is 20 to 120 millions per ml. Okay. What is oligospermia? Less than 20 ml. What is azoospermia? Either absence or near to absence of sperms. What is asthenospermia? Reduced motility of sperms. Teratospermia means abnormal morphology. Terato means abnormal, something which is abnormal in shape, abnormal in function. Okay. A human male ejaculates 200 to 300 millions of sperm in a single coitus, in which 60% have normal motility for meeting out normal fertility and 40% shows vigorous motility. So I hope I made myself very clear. Thank you, my students, for being on the platform of very auspicious Sri Jayendra Rank Zone classes. We'll further continue on the next lecture, the second part. Okay, till then, bye bye, take care, stay safe, stay blessed.